Squares are so popular in part because they're just so easy to pick up and eat. And now that you've got the basics down with the fudge brownie, you're ready to move into the next level, a pumpkin swirl cheesecake square. These are more advanced because we're dealing with a base and a filling. So let's start with the base. It starts with a cup of all-purpose flour. This really is just like making a shortbread cookie. I'll add this to the food processor. Next, a 1/4 cup of light brown sugar. This is a brown sugar shortbread, a common base for a lot of squares. I have 1/3 cup of unsalted butter. The butter is still cool. That way it doesn't get overworked into the dough. Just a few quick pulses. That's all it takes. Don't expect your shortbread crust to come together like a cookie dough. It actually should look quite dry and crumbly, just like this. That means it's perfectly blended. Now, before I put it in my pan, I want to get my pan ready. This is an 8-inch square. I like to line the pan with parchment paper. It makes it easier to lift out the squares. So I want to line the bottoms and the sides. I have a great tip to do this easily. Flip my pan over, upside down, a piece of parchment cut slightly larger than the square itself. Then I fold the square into quarters. I put the center point of the square into the center of the pan, and with a pair of scissors, just cut in on an angle till you feel the scissors hit the edge of the pan. Then, when you flip the pan over, open the square, it drops in easily, lining the pan without any space for filling or crust to leak out the sides. In goes the dry, crumbly crust, and I just use the backs of my fingers, pushing it well into the corners. There we go. This is ready for the oven, 18 minutes at 350, and it'll just turn golden brown around the edges. While that's in the oven, I can take care of the filling. I start with cream cheese, 1/2 block, so 4 ounces, and this has been softened to room temperature. I'm gonna add 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. Just 1/2 cup first and mix that just to make sure I work out any lumps. There we go. Now the remaining 1/4 cup. Now that that's nice and soft and smooth, I can stir in a cup of pure pumpkin puree. So there's no added sugar or flavorings to it. And now that it's getting a little softer, I can switch to a whisk. I'll add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and then, and of course, where would a pumpkin cheesecake square be without a little cinnamon? 1/2 teaspoon. And the final elements to add, 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk. The essence of the filling is done. It's time to make the swirl. Again, using cream cheese, this time just 2 ounces. I add 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, a little splash of vanilla. The swirl is intended just to be an accent, both visually and on the palate, so no strong flavors here. And then just 1 egg yolk. Here we go, perfect, nice and smooth. Now it's time to check on the crust. I can't use that crust hot out of the oven, but I have one here that's fully cooled. And that's a good general rule to remember when making squares. Before you add your filling, make sure your base is cooled completely. Smooth pumpkin cheesecake filling. Spread it evenly to all 4 corners. And then just take a spoon and dollop little spoonfuls of the swirl cream cheese, equally spaced around the square. Then I simply take a bamboo skewer and run through it, spreading the dollops into swirls. Get right to the corners. That way, once you portion this, everybody gets a little bit of a swirl. Now this is ready for the oven, and it bakes for 30 minutes at 350. You check the doneness the same way you do a cheesecake. If it still has a jiggle in the center, you know it's set. Yep. Just a little jiggle in the center. I'll let that pan cool completely to room temperature. I have one that is already chilled for 2 hours, and you want to give it that time so that it slices easily for you. And here it is, right out of the fridge. See how easily, with the paper, the square comes out of the pan. Just like slicing cheesecake, I keep a damp cloth nearby so I can wipe it off in between slices. Keep in mind, this is a style of square that you should keep refrigerated until you're ready to serve. And I am ready to serve it right now. So you can see how the shortbread crust holds the beautiful filling. It slices cleanly and easily.